Hello everyone, and here I am again, and let's continue. And last time, and we talked about the graph and the whole picture of instancology and absolutology. And before we continue into the general picture, and I would like to say a few words about current discussion on this front. And if you go to YouTube and look for consciousness or thinking, or for that matter, you will find a lot of videos, talks on this one, and mostly they are from the science field, either physics professors or neuro scientists or medical people, the researchers from the brain studies, etc. And all of them, if you, well, before I say that, I should say from the philosophy point of view, there are some people, other very active people too, like the big names like Chomsky from MIT and John Searle from Berkeley, I believe, and like Dennett and David Chamberlain, I think that's the name, and like Harvard, Hillary Putman, and a few philosophers are there too. A lot of people are discussing on this front about either consciousness or languages, the limitation of it, things like that, because they are closely related, and we can understand this. But I see the problem here is that it's like, if I use a comparison, it's like you ask the fish, what does it feel to be in water? Then the fish replies to you, what is water then? They are all in sort of the thing, the atmosphere, or the water they are in. Then they talk about water. They cannot jump out of it to talk about that. In Chinese, we have a proverb. We said there's a mountain called Lu Shen. If you are inside the mountain, you cannot see the true face. That's a saying. It's very active from the scientist point of view, and also from some philosophers' point of view. But the problem mostly, I look at it, is from philosophers' point of view. And to my mind, in terms of logical development, since Martin Heidegger and Bertrand Russell or Wittgenstein, they all died in the last century, in the middle of last century. I think it's believed from 1950s to 70s, they all died. So basically for the past 50 years, there's no major development, no major figures in philosophy, no major breakthrough on the logic of this front. That is, in terms of development, you cannot go on anymore. It's like Heidegger said, philosophy is ending. That's why. You just cannot go anywhere because the logic restricted it. Heidegger already reached the end of it. That's a being. And Wittgenstein already reached the language. That's the top of it. That's in our theory, our system point of view, it's called the form of thought. That's a language study. You can go nowhere if you are in this circle. That is, logically, you have no breakthrough. Whatever, you just talk and talk and talk under the ceiling of this umbrella. That's called consciousness or thinking or whatever it is in this front. You just cannot develop anymore if you don't jump out of the water. That's the problem. All right, I just add this part, and because I watched recently, in the last few days I watched a bunch of them, and I had that feeling. I just let you know. I'm going to continue with the graphics we talked about last time. This one, and well, if you look at my books, I have two of them, and you will feel it's a little bit strange. As a Chinese philosopher, if I can be called, quote unquote, why do you make a graphics? It's not a children's book, is it? Philosophers, do you see, let's say, Heidegger made a graph, or Wittgenstein made one, or Hegel, how about Kant? You see, because the ideas are very abstract, and they hardly make any. I didn't see any. But my inclination, my feeling is, for German philosophers, they try to make things more complicated than they really are. And on our side, as a Chinese philosopher, maybe, I like to make things simpler than they appear to be. So to make people understand it. That's my intention. So I'm always trying to think a graph, think a picture to show you. Like if you talk to some lay person, if you show a graph, like Albert Einstein said, what's relativity? Explaining to a old lady from the street. He will say it's like sitting on a stove and talking to your girlfriend, right? And the girlfriend, you feel very short. It's sort of like that kind of explanation. That's what I'm trying to do. So it's a lot of things underneath, under this picture. I didn't mention, but you have to figure it out. I just give you a general understanding what it is. That's for maybe for Chinese, the way we always do this way. And make it simple, but a lot of other things to be talked about. Right? In the ancient China, there's a Qi, there's a Dao, there's a Lao Tzu, everybody. They use very simple words, but to mean a lot. And that's probably the tradition. All right? But anyway, I think to understand something, simpler is better than difficult. Right? Okay, so if you take that, let's continue. All right, I mentioned this in the last two talk about this picture. There's a lot to be said about this. Probably you can spend the whole semester on that. I'll give you a few more along this line to give you a rough picture. You can see everything here, right? I don't want to go to detail anymore because I talked about that already. I'll give you a few more related to this. All right, another one is this one. Here you go. Yeah, here you go. Here you go. This one is in my book, in the first one, the part 1 of Instancology. All right, this one is 4 years ago. I drew it, okay? It's basically the same, except it has some terms here. Let's say there's a Socratic term. The three big guys, Socrates, Plato, Aristotle, they make a turn from discussing being to discussing something more related, or more related to reality, or they can see the results and things like that. Instead of asking what is being, they ask how did we come to this conclusion? How did we go this way? What is there? How we can do it? Things like that, right? Okay, so from why to how is there called Socratic switch here. So 3 made a switch. Then another one down, I make one for science. There's science goes from Archimedes, from the axiom to theorem, things like that. There's another line here, all right? Then the other lines basically is development. It's the same here. So if you look at the book, you can see that. But they all come eventually to come instancology, all right? And they are related. But what instancology is, it doesn't say here, right? At that time, I just basically summarize the history of Western philosophy in this way, all right? This is another one in the picture in book 1, by the way. All right, and I also made some more like this. All right, if you look at this one, what's this about? What's special about this is, okay, first I didn't put it into English yet. I didn't translate them. Okay, it's basically saying this is a instantology's ontology. Well, actually, the word ontology is a misleading word, because ontology means something exists or being, the study of being or existence. But here it is not. But anyway, I have no other way to say it. All right? I can only say that's called ontology. All right? Okay. But the basic of the picture is this is absolutely absolute, double A. All right, remember that part? Okay. Here, this 3 dimension, I mean, it's temporal spatial. All right, that's basically our macro world. Remember, I talked about the macro world, the macro world. The one is big, one is small. But what this picture stresses is the instancology rooted in the physical structure or biological build-up. That's what I'm saying. This half, it says, the left hemisphere of a brain. This is the right half of the brain. Right half of the hemisphere of the brain. Okay? And we know from the left part that is mostly related to syntax, logic, thinking, words, language. In instancology's term, we call it the form of thoughts. Forms of thoughts, such as language, logic, math, symbols. The right half is the consciousness, the will, the desire, the creativity, the arts, the music, the drawing, the whole picture. The people call it, in the internet, call it unity of consciousness. Anything you can grab as a whole, that's on the right half. But remember, these two, I call it minor absolutes. So, their background, you see why it's cut here? It's related. You see, it's not complete circle, not a sealed circle. They are related to absolute. So that's the idea. All right? To me, in this system, there are 3 absolutes. Remember that. The big one is the background. The 2 small ones, it's localized in our brain. To be exact, it's the left half of the logical part, and the right half about the semantical part. All right? So one part is logical, is a syntax. The other part is a meaning, is semantics. All right? The both parts take turn to work, like a computer. All right? This part, left part, explains things, but without interpretation. What's the meaning? They just go according to rules. That's computer, like assembly language, 1 or 2. Nothing else. All right? This part gave the meaning. This part, right part, gave meaning. How far you can go, how deep you should go, things like that. The two sides control each other. And if you study the brain, and the modern medical study already tells us, left control right and right controls left. All right, so they are crossing each other. Also along other things like a motor or muscle, whatever movement on the bodily parts. But here we only talk about the control of the language part and the emotional, the will, the desire, the consciousness, the thinking, the logic. We only talk about that. All right, that's higher part. So what are the black spot in the middle? These, they are, I indicated this is matter, the world of matters. All right, think about that. The 1, 2, 3, the three background. There's nothing there, or I cannot say nothing. When they have something, it becomes materials, and it pop up here like a bubble. Think about that. All right. So these black spots are things coming out. You can think it's in the morning, your first thought. Or before you wake up is the first thought in your mind. All right? And also in Instancology, we think how your brain creates thoughts each day before you wake up is how the world, our world, is developed from the Big Bang. Who caused the Big Bang to explode, to have time and space? The Absolute. See, the three things, remember, is the same. In other words, as a human being, you have both worlds because you are part of the universe or part of everything. In your brain, you have localized two parts, absolute, with absolute quality, property, and they represent the background absolute. All right, so you have everything. So see how lucky we are. All right, so briefly, this is this picture about. Another one I made is like this. See, like kindergarten one. Isn't that good? Cute? Alright. Here this part is absolute. The big background absolute. This is our atmosphere. This is two antenna. They are communicating. Alright? This is the left is the logic. The right is consciousness. If you are strong, you are man on this side. This is Chinese word for man. And the other one is for woman. Mostly you are good at it, all right? It doesn't mean you don't have anything on the other side. No. You have, but the majority of it, or what you are good at, okay? On this part is the logic, like words. Everything you write in words, in abstract terms. On the left side is drawing pictures, like a little girl, right? To write the blue sky and the sunshine, the little lamp, things like that, all right? When you come to the body part, this part is called a relative. It's a Chinese word. It's called a relative. Remember, we start logically from philosopher tradition. We have to go logically. So, everything we are in our current world is relative. Everything is imperfect in reality. All right? So we call it this logical world. So, naturally, what's the other part? Absolute. You got it? That's the part we need to jump out of the absolute to grab it. But that's not you. We cannot use that of logical reasoning or rationale. We have to depend on the intuitive insight. In Chinese, I call it 无性. But here, because it goes through or filtered through relative, I call it a pure 无性 in the tradition of Kant. All right, like his pure reason or something. All right. Okay. So the two legs. This one is called forms. The other one is called content. Actually, they are mean thinking. All right. If you know the tradition, you know they are sort of a higher level of abstraction. If you are familiar with Plato, you know Plato's idea is the form of reality, of single fact. Let's say the blue of the blue jeans, the sky, the blue of the skies, they both partake the blueness of the idea, the form of blue. All right, when this idea comes to phenomenology, that's Edmund Husserl, it becomes the event, the series of things. Think about this way. That's called pure experience. Let's say if you drive, if your wife drives, your neighbor drives, everybody drives, right? Everybody drives. But what's the common experience of driving? Husserl wants to get that one. That's objective. The pure experience of driving is what phenomenology aims at. So you understand what's the development from Plato to Husserl. All right? Now, go one more step forward. You come to Instancology. That they abstract all the events from the reality to thoughts, from the thought of reality to thought forms and the thought contents. That's one more step higher, also the end of philosophy. That's why Heidegger says, when we come here, you have nowhere to go. Philosophy is the ending. No big ideas. He is right. He sees the logic inside the logic. Only somebody who mastered the whole history of Western civilization or human civilization, the entire history of philosophy, you can understand this. You can say this. Otherwise, you are sort of in the riddle, in the big palace of riddle. You are in one square. You cannot come out. You don't have the whole picture in your mind. All right? That's one. Okay, so briefly about this picture. Look at here. It's all in my book. Okay, the last one I want to show you here. All right, we don't have much time left. Let me hurry up. Look at here. It's called the absolutology. What's special about this part? It's sort of like epistemology. It tells you what it is. We divide it into 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 parts. You started from the attitudes. When you're a little boy or little girl, you think the world is in your head. You said, I don't like to get up before 10 o'clock. And everybody shouldn't wake me up. That's how you see the world. The next square, you go up, you find the facts in the Western. Actually, this attitude is still Chinese attitude. Okay? The king, the emperor, it still goes that way. All right? In ancient China, we have the sort of a person, a big, like a prime minister, appointed a deer, say that's a horse. Whoever doesn't agree with him, to the hundreds of the officials in the palace, he'll kill him. So attitude is number one here. It's just, in China, it's still like that. All right. In the Western part, we come to the facts. What is facts? They seek fact. All right. Okay. Now one more step forward is a function. The world is a function. All right. For function's sake, the fact can be put into fx equals facts. What's the parameter we put in? Time and space. You get it. And you can put one more, psychology, what humans feel. That's called a fact. So later system will include the previous one and make the previous one as a subsystem. That's how relativity deals with classical physics. Okay? If you go one more thing to the right, you come to the whole world, everything included. That's called a relative world. Everything we do is relative. Alright? Of course, eventually you jump out of the whole everything, the whole our system of stars, universe, you go to the absolute. That's purely a function. It calls our world, the relative part, to be there. It calls the point where it explodes later because a Big Bang happens. Alright? So this is the whole idea. I put it here into my book. You can take a look. Alright? Okay. So far, today, I just briefly gave you a few introduction to a few pictures. I hope to make things simpler than they really are, and to make you understand, see the big picture. Alright? See you next time. Bye-bye.